You don't choose radio, radio chooses you. You know, once these, like certain industries, they get in your bloods. When you run a radio station, you've got 600 applications. You don't want to waste your time. Let's go to this academy where they've done the filtering and we'll pick someone out. I hadn't really made a network of friends or people that had been here. And I was thinking, what am I going to do?
Gladiators, welcome back. It's not often that I get nervous interviewing a guest at the arena. Today I have a professional presenter, DJ, musician, entertainer, MC, a gentleman who interviewed me going back 4 or 5 months ago. And I just connected with him. He's a real, genuine, incredible human being. And I want to welcome you, Lachlan Kitchen, to the arena.
It is great to be here. I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. You sent me your bio and I thought it was really interesting. Do you know why I admire you so much? Now, I wanted you to come.
Please tell me.
Because I see you work so hard. And I respect people who work hard, okay? Because there's lots of people who are in your position and say, well, I'm above this and I don't do this. I am who I am. And, you know, and I just see that you're working so hard and I respect that so much. Is that something you've always done since childhood?
I think it's probably partly my upbringing, but also the environment of being Australian. And I think that modern Australia was just built on, it didn't matter what your rank, what your privilege, you had to get in and get your hands dirty to help build the country. Yes. And when I was, you would have shared I shared you a bit of my story that I was unable to finish high school. And all my friends are off to for health reasons. And so all my friends are off at university and they're all off at playing pool at the bar and doing all these sort of things. And the only job I could get was with my grandfather working in his factory. And that was in the meat industry. And that was tough. I mean, these guys are hardcore butchers and working in the factory, and I'm the boss's grandson. But he was a product coming out of Australia of the Great Depression and the First World War. And even though he was a butcher, he was in sales and he was a people person. And he instilled in me a lot of these values about, if you're going to be successful, work hard, be good with people and remain agile. And, he kept those 3 attributes. And I think there was an element of, as my friends were going to university and, they're in finance and law, I didn't finish high school. So something twigged in me, I'm going to have to work twice as hard as everyone else to try and get that foot in the door. Yes. And I think, fortunately, anyone who has that flick switched inside them, it doesn't stop. Yes. You just got to keep going.
Yes. It's not about winning, losing. It's not about greed. It's within you. Right?
Well, once you enjoy the win, that first win, you're like, I've got to get another one.
I enjoy that, yeah. And do you mind if I ask about your health issues? What happened?
Sure. So, I was diagnosed. Well, I left school halfway through year 7. So in Australia, that's the first year of high school. And I was diagnosed with a disease called ME-CFS. And I very rarely talk about this, so consider yourself, one of the few. So I was physically ill and unable to really leave the house.
Do you mind if I ask what is that?
ME-CFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, sometimes known as chronic fatigue syndrome. Oh, wow. And I remember seeing a great physician.
So in your teenage years?
Yeah, these hardcore years of socializing and development.
So you were physically tired all the time, you want to sleep. Did they think there was something wrong with you? Like, come on, you being lazy, go to school at first?
Well, look, fortunately, my sister had been ill she was older and she'd been through those experiences. So when it came to me, the process for diagnosis wasn't as hard, but I think that you were sort of for many years too sick to realise what you were missing out on, because you were physically ill and you're susceptible to chemicals and smells and pollutions, and you couldn't physically leave the house for more than a couple of hours. And I saw a great doctor 4 or 5 years in, and he was educating me on, I'm going to get you right. But then the struggle starts because you've sort of got to learn how to socially adapt and catch up with people.
How many years were you off?
Left school at year 7. I didn't go back. I tried to do distance education, lessons over the internet, and they send out your assignments and send it back. So my parents were strong enough to know we've got to mentally get him through to the next year. Because if you're, you're 14 or 15, but you're only at a year 7 education, at that age, that affects your well-being.
Yes.
So the idea was, how much work can we do so we can then progress to the next year of studies? So it was
very smart.
So grateful for mum and dad, and they tried to kind of maybe do 1 or 2 classes at school a week or whatever it was. But eventually, when it came to really knuckling down and studying for the final year, it was decided, look, what's the point of the mark? If you're not well and it's not a decent mark, don't push your body, get yourself right. And that was the start of me taking the foot off studies. That's sort of 16, 17, 18. And I was just fortunate where I had a family business I could go into and start to.
So your dad was in the meat business.
So my grandfather Dad was successful in real estate.
Okay.
Dad, but my grandfather on my mother's side was the one who had the meat industry, and he'd been a butcher and had been agile to move into sort of supplies and things, and that's where I started.
Okay, so looking back at your childhood, fun memories or no?
Oh yeah. Growing up,
you were missing out because the kids were playing and school.
You know what?
And you're at home.
I was lucky because I was exposed to a lot of other kids that were sicker than I was, and I was exposed to a lot of kids that didn't.
Because you were in hospital.
Because I was in times in hospital or doctor's surgeries, but also other sick kids that were in my remote learning school that were all the way around the country. And I was like, wow, this kid's,
I'm blessed compared to these.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not living in an apartment. My parents have got a house with a backyard, and I can actually go outside and play with a dog. Or my parents are together and they're not telling me, nothing's wrong with you, get into school. So suddenly you
count your blessings.
You count your blessings. And I was like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I saw different things. You suddenly learned how much work a mum does around the house, and you were exposed to far more mature conversations and worldly experiences and things that I look back now and are a blessing. But at the time, it made it socially pretty tough, because your life experience, when you try and catch up with your school friends and they're just complaining about this teacher and this teacher.
And you have no idea what they're talking about.
No idea what they're going on with. Yeah. So I think that the coping mechanism I've learned to get through that was, I'm different. I don't fit in. That's not my path. And unfortunately, that hardened mindset was something that got me through those teenage years, but was also hard to unravel. Because then when I got a job or got into industry, my first mindset is, like anyone who's been through any sort of traumatic, situation, was, I've got to relearn that I do fit in, that I am accepted.
Do you find that you were overcompensating?
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty common.
Love buy and stuff like this.
Yeah. Or sometimes you wouldn't even try.
Do you think that's why you're going to the entertainment business?
No,
because you get so much love and connection because of.
Well, that's a great question. The love of radio came from, I'd started learning guitar at the age of 7. So I was into music. So you'd lie in bed and listen to the radio. But after spending 4 or 5 years just doing nothing but listening, suddenly I had this great knowledge. And what you do find is that then when you did socialize, to be memorable, you had to be funny.
Yeah.
So when everyone's, been at school and been on camp or played footy together, and then I turn up and no one's seen me for 3 months, I got to go into that room and I got to make everyone laugh. Yeah, and be hilarious, so that if someone else is having a birthday party in 6 months, I'll get invited. Yeah, because they're not going to ask me in the schoolyard.
You became an entertainer.
So that's where it came from. And there is showbiz in the family, relatives and musicians and performers and all those sort of things.
So do you think, going back to the illness, do you think, do you have other siblings apart from your
sister?
Yeah,
just an older sister. Yeah.
Okay, and is she as optimistic about life as you are?
Yeah, I think so. I think that you just, like anyone that's been through these things, suddenly you learn to appreciate what you've got.
Are you close?
Yeah, I think so.
In Australia?
Well, she's in Australia, as close as you get.
And does this illness run to the family because you guys got it?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, I don't really know. I think it could have been something whereby.
But they weren't educated enough. Science wasn't up to date to know if that was the case.
No, yeah. So, but it could have been something where mum was exposed to a pesticide or a chemical or something. I'm not sure.
And when you went into the workplace, were you kind of pampered?
No.
Did your granddad say, don't, because it could be sick, it could be that, or?
No, it was that Aussie way of go down to the factory, get stuck in. You know, and I was like, oh, and all the blokes are in the machines in the factory. Are you here to take us over, are you? You know, and I'm like, oh, I just want to fit in.
The Aussie human.
Yeah.
Do you know, maybe that's why we resonate. My name is Dariush Soudi, Soudi, and it's an Arabic name, but I'm Iranian born. So I always, because my father died when I was young and my granddad died when I was young, I didn't know where the name came from. I just presumed it's like a Arabic name. It must have been warriors somewhere and got this name and so forth. So I found my uncle in Austria, flew to see him, and my children want to know where the name came from, right? So because I don't have a family tree, a history of what's going on past my granddad. So I found my uncle, and I said, I went to Austria, to Vienna to meet him. I said, Uncle, tell me about our name. He goes, well, what do you want to know? I said, well, how far generations we go back? He said, actually, just granddad. I said, why did he change it to Soudi? Because we were butchers. And in Iran, they called you by your trade. So if you're a blacksmith, they call you blacksmith. Yeah, exactly. So if you were into pharmacy, they call you Darubash, which is the distributor of medicine. And we were called butchers. So you would have been called Dariush the Butcher.
Yeah.
Right? And granddad got a job with the government, with the Shah of Iran. And he felt he had to change it to Soudi. So you should be lucky that you're not called Dariush Butcher. So I found out my friends, I found my children.
You're excited, you have the history.
Yeah. I said, guys, you don't know how lucky you are. There's not a romantic story to this. However, you could have been called butchers. So they were happy. So there we are. Maybe that's why we resonate.
I think so, because learning from my grandfather, he talk about sales. He'd always talk to me and he'd go, I used to tell all the boys in the butcher shop, you know, kiss the babies, say how good they are. Remember Mrs. Jones, she's got 2 dogs, keep the bones for her, do this, keep that. You remember, you slice the meat, you know, have the good bits on top, you know, and she likes the extra bits for the, and it was always, you know, just people, tell a joke, tell a story, hug them, you know, get.
Is he still with us, your granddad?
No, passed away. He about 90, I think he was about 93.
Wow. Recently?
94. No, this could be 10 years ago. He was tough. You know, the doctors said to us, look, you better come to the hospital. He's got about 24 hours. And then he lasted another 30 days. So we were going back. Could be the last day. Could be last.
Yeah. But he sounded like a force for good, right? He was a leader. And those times, there was no internet. There was no sales and marketing courses.
No.
Something was within him.
No.
Build relationships.
Yeah.
Look after your customers. They keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, you see people and your method of that kind of, you know, it's win or die, fight or die. Mm-hmm. And we got a call one day because he'd had an operation on his hip and the anesthetic wasn't very good. And we've turned up to the hospital.
He's in pain.
And we're waiting in the hospital. And there's this ward. And we hear this, help, police, help. And I remember thinking, I wonder whose relative that is. And they said, well, your grandfather's in there. And what he'd done was something had gone wrong with the anesthetic. So he was trying to get out of bed and go home. Didn't want to be there. So he was so tough that they gave him a 24-hour security guard. But he was
fighting to stay.
Right. But he was tougher than the security guard. So he'd wait till the middle of the night for the security guard to nod off. And then he'd go. Oh my God. So he was just tough. And I think that's, like I said, it goes back to those early settler days of, you know, Australia is a very blessed country now. But 100 years ago, you know, you were the poor settlers that turned up.
So you would have been 103 years.
And you went with nothing. And you, to be a farmer, the driest, harshest, flood, drought, everything. Yes. People that came there then, and then there was a depression, and then there's a world war. Yes. Mate,
Did he fight in the war?
No, he didn't. And that's a tough part about it. Australia was that he had a fractured skull when he was a teenager. So he was unable to medically get there. But he always felt a bit, I'm not a real Aussie, you know, because so much when Australia, I mean, going to the history of Australia, we officially became a country in 1901. So a big event was World War I. So when the kids went in the World Wars, that was when you were really serving something.
He would have been around for World War I. He would have been World War II, right?
World War II he didn't go to, but still the idea was...
You fight for your country. You fight for your...
The real Aussies were the ones who'd been to war.
Crazy.
So yeah.
So did he pass a wealthy man?
Yeah. He had a few investments, but he was just smart with his money.
So
I think
what did that make you feel about money and wealth and power, or running your own business?
Yeah, I think it was the idea of how agile he was, and the way he was able to work, but constantly. I guess the idea was he never stopped working. There was never a retirement age. Yeah, he might have scaled off to a certain degree or sold this,
Yes.
but you're still working, still investing, still researching, still hustling.
And what was the relationship with your dad?
Dad was the same. So that grandfather was on mum's side. Dad was as equally good. Dad spent years in real estate, was in sales, and from him I learnt the same attributes of just people. People wanted to work with him.
Yes.
Even to this day, he's in his 80s. And when he goes to drop off the car, the mechanics ask to work for him,
Wow.
because he turns up with a joke. He turns up with something to make people feel good, to build relationships. When I was a kid, in my 7 or 8, everyone used to bully me with this last name, Kitchen. Kitchen, Mr. Laundry, and you sort of get a bit, you're getting bullied about your name.
Yes.
And then I'd go on holidays with mum and dad, and everywhere we went, we got an upgrade in the hotel. And you know what they'd do? They'd turn up to reception and they'd make fun of their last name. Oh, you're Hindi, it's Rasui. Oh, you're Turkish. Oh, it's Mutfak. Oh, you're Arabic. It's Mudbak. And the person would laugh,
yes,
and
and
you'd
upgrade them,
and
build a connection.
build a connection.
Yeah.
And Dad would always say to me, "Get him on side." That was the method. Get him on side.
Amazing.
So you turning that into a positive.
Yes, but you decided not to own your own company because you're kind of self-employed now, and we're going to go to that later on.
Well,
a conscious decision. You think I saw too much pain running your own business. I want to do my own thing.
Talk about a missed opportunity. Dad had a real estate business in Sydney
Yes.
that he was like, "Do you want to take over the business?" And Sydney real estate's like Dubai real estate. It's
Absolutely.
with the growth of the city.
Still.
No, he got out about 10 years ago or
Because
something.
I went to Sydney and lived in Wollongong.
Did you?
Yeah, for 6 months, 1990.
That's where I was That's where I was in radio in Wollongong.
No, I was living in Sydney and traveling to Wollongong.
That's what I was doing. I did that for 3 years.
Me too. For 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was big Polish. Lots of Polish people there. And my uncle said, I would have been 23. And my uncle said, we can find opportunity in Australia. I was lost. And I took all my savings, $25,000 to Australia, gave it to him. And he was in the Persian carpet industry. So he opened up a Persian carpet store in Wollongong.
It's probably still there.
Maybe it was in a mall.
Okay.
And we had this thing called lay-by.
Yeah.
Cash flow got effed. So people will come in on weekly salaries. So I'll take that $5,000 carpet, put it aside in the back, and I'll pay you weekly. Never heard of anything. I had all my $25,000 in the cupboard on lay-by, and the cash flow got raped. I had no money. So I lost everything because lay-by doesn't help with cash flow.
Yeah.
Lay-by, for the viewers, is that somebody comes and pays a small deposit and says, put this aside, I want this product. And then they pay weekly until they own it, correct?
Yeah.
It's quite common still?
Yeah, I don't think it is. They've changed. They've got a new system called Afterpay, which is really big. It's similar but different. But it works on the basis of trying to sell you something that you don't have the money for.
Correct. But then all the stock was sitting in the bank. So all my cash was sitting in the bank. And I was 23. I was arguing with my uncle. I said, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. First of all, you don't sell Persian carpets in area where people are getting weekly salaries. He didn't listen. So I spent 6 weeks on Bondi Beach.
Good way to
having
be.
fun.
Yeah.
And then on my last day, I met a beautiful girl. And she said to me, tell me about your story. I said, I wish I'd met you 6 months ago. I could have got you here, this. I kind of half fell in love with her and then left.
Where was she from?
Sydney.
She was a Sydney girl? Yeah.
But at that time, I had a really good tan because I was on Bondi Beach for so long.
Still a beautiful beach. It's full of South Americans and New Zealanders. And great. But the gong here and there. Wow.
Yeah, small world, right? I've never seen insects so big. And it was so hot, the drive from Sydney to Wollongong. I remember, I felt like my stomach, food was cooking in my stomach driving there.
It's a different heat to the Middle East.
Mm.
We get this humidity, but
Yes.
the Aussie sun, we joke that old Aussies, they just put like leather on their, leather balsam to clean up the skin.
And also, I remember there's a lot of pollution. There's factories. I used to, 1990, it was like, these guys are really polluting because Australia was building, right? They're developing. And I felt there was so much factories polluting the air at that time.
Well, Wollongong's industry was a steel town, coal mine.
Right,
made all the steel.
Correct.
And much like your relatives, most of the people tended to come from Eastern Europe.
Yes.
They were, Macedonian, Greek, and Croatians and Serbians, and that's the goal.
You really felt you were part of a new country, and there was, I don't know what it's called now. It was like camps, like not labor camps, but there was these events every weekend where 2,000 people will come, and then they have barbecues and they subsidized food and drinks.
Okay, maybe that was something the community or the...
And it was in Sydney as well.
Yeah, right.
And a bunch of people came in. It was all subsidized food. So I went there a lot. I can't remember. It was something like, like Conservative Men's Club. It was like Labour Club or something it was called.
Yeah. Okay. So the clubs or leagues clubs would put something on. Yeah. And that's where that's that. And when you're in that new community, that's where the hard work comes in, because we're all like, all right, we've all got to work together. Get stuck in.
Yes. I felt it was a bit backward coming from England. I thought this is like essentially all this. But Sydney, I fell in love with Sydney. Yeah. It was the most beautiful city I've ever seen in my life.
It is something. Sydney in summer, I just don't think the people there really acknowledge just how beautiful some of those beaches and that harbour is. It's magnificent.
I walked the harbour thinking, would I one day have an apartment here? It never worked. Came back. And I drove from, again, I'm going to mispronounce the name, on the East Coast. There was nothing. It took me, I think, 14 hours to drive on a bus. And I went up the East Coast, not one single hotel, nothing those days. Now, East Coast is full. Am I right? I'm looking at resorts and things like this.
Well, look, Sydney's full, so everyone's had to move north. You talk about property. Sydney and Australia wide, there is a housing shortage. The way interest rates are now back up at about 4%, but you're still seeing property going up 10, 15%. The shortage on good homes or good stock, particularly in wealthy areas, is forcing that migration north. But yeah, I know it's a
country. I went. Is it Cairns?
Cairns is a long way up.
I went from Sydney to Cairns.
Gee, that's a 40-hour drive.
It was. Yeah, I was on a bus falling asleep, and I didn't have any money, so that was the cheapest flight back to England. Also, what I realized, there was no internet at the time. How the distance. So I couldn't speak to my family. I had to wake up like silly o'clock to catch them in normal time. So I really felt the distance.
Yeah. But you don't feel it in Australia too much. Well, it's in our DNA to travel for 24 hours on a holiday. And I get English people here in the UAE and they're like, oh, England's so far. And I'm like, it's 7 hours.
It's nothing, yeah. And also, these are the things I remember now speaking with you. A lot of people went to New Zealand on holiday. Yes. Yeah. Because their countryside, and that was a beautiful place to go. And
you've got the South Pacific Islands are great, Fiji, Vanuatu, and it has changed a bit. I think maybe 30, 40 years ago, most Australians longed to go to Europe.
Yes.
But now Asia has opened up, and it's so cheap.
Yes.
And it's obviously closer that you're finding most Aussies are in Bali and Thailand and Vietnam.
Yeah, I lived in Thailand for 3 years.
Where haven't you lived? Is that a better question?
Yeah, that's about it, actually, Dubai. So what brought you to Dubai?
Yeah, I got a phone call. Talk about life experiences. I'd gone stale. Wouldn't say I was stuck, but we've had those places in our career.
You left the butcher meat business.
So yeah, that was sort of just the halfway.
Okay.
Before I could get into radio. So a couple of years later, I volunteered. And
was that your goal?
That was the goal.
Get on radio.
So I was just ringing people, got the work experience jobs, got into a really elite media training school, and then got my first job at 22.
To have I know you have this natural ability. Do you think the school...
It was about buying into the network. So I got my first job because they contacted the academy. So it was just about... Networking, because when you run a radio station, you've got 600 applications. You don't want to waste your time. Let's go to this academy where they've done the filtering and we'll pick someone out. So that was in Wollongong. So that was the ticket out. But I'd done a lot of things, and I'd worked in comedy, or tried to work in comedy and political advisory, and done all this sort of stuff. But I was just stale, and I cannot stress how amazing the universe is. Is that one day I went, I've got to jump. I've got to have enough. Contract negotiation is up here. I'm not renewing. I've got to just see what else is out there. And the very day I made up my mind on that, a friend of mine from that same college rang me and he goes, hey, do you want to go do radio in Dubai? A friend of mine's looking for a job for a breakfast show. Look, and I was like, yes, that sounds exactly what I need at my stage.
How long ago was this?
This was 2019.
Okay.
So
quite recently.
Yeah. So I came out, didn't really know what was going on. So I arrived. It was first day of Ramadan. And
by the way, it's improved, right?
And
those days it was
dead. This is 4 years ago.
Yes.
I was like, it's hot, it's Ramadan. Then that was May.
Is everyone?
June, July, August. I'd spent 4 months here, and I'm like, you know what?
I'm cooking.
This is not fun. There's no events. Nothing's going on. There's
you
no one.
Straight into work. You were on the radio.
So I was on radio. So the other side of it was I'm up at 4:30 doing a breakfast radio show, and I'm like hardworking, focused. No, I'm not going to go out. Not going to social. Let's do the show, and then I can worry about doing everything else.
Yeah.
So knuckled down 4 months, and I'm like, this is not. There's nothing to do in this city. This is boring. What's everyone talking about? But of course, September hits. Schools are back, events are happening, and I'm going, this is pretty good. Then come December, January, we're meeting celebrities, we're hanging out, it's buzzing, and I'm like...
Same radio station as you're in now?
No, different radio station. Okay. And things are cooking, and I'm going, it's December, like, yeah, we're celebrities and everything. And then COVID hits. And it's...
January 2020, right?
January, February.
December, yeah, exactly.
So then we spent 4 or 5 months in lockdown, not knowing what we were doing. And I started...
The radio station kept going.
Radio station kept going. We kept going to work. We weren't working from home. But Australia closed its borders. And mentally, I was a bit...
You felt stuck.
What if something happens to my mum and dad? I can't get in. A lot of Aussies felt the same way. And then what happens after 4 or 5 months, the company did a huge amount of redundancies. Don't know how many it was. And I was the last one who'd been employed, so I'm out.
Wow. So what happened to the morning breakfast?
So they rejigged the lineup. All the stations in the network, every network in the country was going through the same thing. So I'm here, lost the job.
You can't go back home.
Can't go back home. Hadn't really made a network of friends or people that had been here. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? I can't get home. So hard work plays a part. 6 months earlier, I'd hosted a trivia night for an airline, and their payment was a staff ticket. So I'd booked that to go to a friend's wedding in October, and Australia was to Australia, and Australia kept cancelling all their planes. We can't let people in. Cancel. Because I was a staff ticket, I kept getting rebooked. And they rang up and they said, we've got a seat for you tomorrow. Up the front, because there are only 14 people on each plane.
Sure.
And I was like, things were starting to open up here, and I could see there was opportunities.
And
but
Australia had opened up.
Australia, was completely closed. No COVID. Hadn't had COVID because they just basically put a seal around the country. So things here had been really bad. Europe had gone through, summer and everything, and you could see there was just light was opening up economically. But I went, I got to go home. Like, I'd been bumming around for 2 or 3 months. I'd been offered work at here, Oman, all these places.
How are you doing financially?
Financially, I'd put stuff away. It was the old day. You save for a rainy day and it's pouring. So I was doing okay. And what was amazing during that time was I thought, I've got to go home. And I literally went home the next day, Darish, and I'll be honest, I moved in with my parents. And you're big on vision boards, right? Yes. And I sat there and I went, I'm 38. I'm single, I'm unemployed, I'm living with my parents, and I'd never been happier.
Wow, amazing.
Because of everything that COVID had been for a lot of people.
Yes.
And I'd worked so hard, and you mentioned the hustle. I thought, I'm for the first time in my life, I'm just going to have a couple of months off. I'm just going to
Enjoy.
hang out with my parents, see my friends that had kids. I hadn't seen those because I'd worked weekends hosting gigs,
Silly
whatever, for
hours
years.
and- yeah, exactly.
Antisocial hours in this industry. So I was like, no, I'm going to do these things. And hustled around. I didn't hustle, and I looked for a couple of jobs, and there were 2 big jobs in Sydney I went for, and they both went internally. And what was happening was the UAE was starting to open up. And Dad, opportunities were saying, and Dad took me aside and he said, listen, don't tell your mother.
You're not welcome here anymore.
No, he just said, maybe I'd think about just going
Moving
back.
out.
Because no, you could, no, not moving out.
We can hear you snoring at night.
Well,
You only have one toilet in the...
now I explain it to you. Maybe this is what he was saying. But the situation was in that...
You're 38.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but look...
About time you went out.
Yeah,
and...
exactly. But you couldn't, at that stage, you weren't legally allowed to leave Australia.
Right.
Because they didn't have rooms, because you needed to do 14 days isolation
Correct.
in a hotel room when you came
So
back.
when you took the ticket to Australia, you did 14 days isolation.
Yeah, you had to fly straight in, and then the army picked you up in a bus, and they took you down, and everyone's got masks and gloves, and then you go up to the hotel room, and I was in
You had to pay for it?
We had to pay for it, and about 10,000 dirhams. That's on top of the flight. The flight was 25 one way. And it's not like a UAE hotel room where you're on the Palm or somewhere.
Job.
No. Well, it was a 5-star hotel, but it was a CBD hotel with the view of another building and no windows opened. So you're in there for 14 days and 14 nights without fresh air.
Jail.
Yeah. And it's...
And you can't socialize. You can't get out of your room. You're stuck in.
And some people, it messed with some people. You did know when you put yourself in that situation where you can message people and you can ring people, but without direct sunlight or fresh air for 14 days, it makes you realize as humans, these are things we need. I've got friends that have got kids that say to me, that sounds like my dream.
Yeah. But they say it, but I'm sure when you go through
but after 2-3 days of watching shows, you're like, no, I'd like to go put my feet on the grass. So I'd gone through all that, and having gone through that, that's how I reached that point of being happy being with my parents. But when Dad took me aside, he said, look, your visa, you can still leave Australia.
Yes.
He said, no one else can. And my friends that are like, well, if you're not married and you haven't got kids here and you can leave, why don't you go and have a look around? Mm-hmm. So I just was like, yeah, I got to have a go, roll the dice. So I left Australia, April, May. This is 2021.
Back to Dubai.
Back to Dubai land. A lot of people wanted me back. A lot of people didn't want me back. And I came in, and within 6 months, I hustled. And I got a phone call from a company, and they said, hey, do you want to come in for a meeting? We're setting up a brand new radio station, a Hindi talk station. Do you want to start it? And I was like, what do I know about Hindi talk? And they said, Lachlan, we've got the rights. The Cricket World Cup is coming to Dubai, and we're broadcasting.
It's the biggest thing.
And I was like, I'm in. So,
do you like cricket? Do you know anything about cricket?
Cricket has been in my blood.
Seriously?
Dad has been a member of the Sydney Cricket Ground for 50 years. My grandfather was a member of the Melbourne Cricket Ground for 70 years.
Wow, so you knew cricket very well.
My greatest memories are sitting there with my family, my uncles, just watching cricket and learning about cricket in the backyard. And I got a great memory of, at about 35, inviting my dad down at 70 to play cricket with us. And when I drove him home, the first thing Dad did was ring his dad and say, hey, guess what happened at cricket today? And he's 91. It's in the blood. So when they said this offer there's the Cricket World Cup, and we want to broadcast the World Cup all the way around the world, I was like, I'm in. And I hustled, and there was a moment from landing in April to maybe 4 or 5 months later, I'd set up a radio station. I was back doing gigs again, and I was starting to make corporate podcasts for people. And then I'm doing the Cricket World Cup.
How good could it get?
And I'm thinking, yeah, you've got to strategically take your chances and back yourself.
I notice you don't talk about money at all.
Yeah. Well, I think there's an air of, I don't think Australians are as flashy as perhaps other countries.
What about self-worth? Do you think you've taken on jobs where you could have got paid more?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if I was really into money, I would have followed Dad into real estate.
in the radio business.
Oh, in the radio
Do you
business.
think you could have, looking back, we're not going to mention radio stations, but do you think you could have negotiated a better deal?
Yep.
They could see your passion, so that you got a little bit abused, or used, or
The-
taken
the-
advantage
I,
of.
I think the industry I'm in is that they do take advantage of your passion. And I think it is very hard to understand your self-worth sometimes because you're so passionate about it.
You forget about yourself, and until afterwards you think,
Actually, you know what? I was pretty good to that place, you know, and you can do that. I think that's why in my industry, like music, that's why people have managers.
yeah,
They have someone to negotiate for them to take away the
You
emotion.
don't. You don't.
No, I don't. Maybe I should. If you want 20%, I'm happy to.
We can discuss it.
But yeah, that's why you generally have those people to work for you.
And at the same time, you continue playing the guitar.
Love it. I love it.
That's your real passion, right?
I think so because it's an outlet. Because people have things they go to, and for me, you know, for all those years sick, I'm in my room learning and playing, and it becomes music becomes a way. Sorry,
It becomes part of you.
yeah. And if you've got a problem or something's gone wrong,
Pick up the guitar, play the music.
I've had a bad day. You just play, and you're sitting here, and you're not even thinking about
And
it.
nobody taught you. You self-taught.
I had a couple of lessons at 7, but when I was 7, I was having those lessons, and within a week, I was already telling the teacher, "No, I want to play like this. This is how I want to do it."
Do you write music?
I do. But I've never been like a songwriter. I mean, I probably lacked confidence. I have to be honest with my playing because I'd always been a great guitar player, but I'd never sung. And talk about opportunities. Expo was in Dubai and the Australia Pavilion needed performers. But going back to what had happened, Australia was closed.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So where are they going to get
COVID.
performers from?
You did.
So I put my hand up. Now, I've played guitar all my life. I've never really sung like openly. And now I'm doing all these gigs, and it still baffles me that when I'm playing and then the waiter comes over and goes, "Oh, Mr. Kitch, I loved your voice." You know, or I'm doing a gig somewhere in the middle of the, you know, in the middle of the desert for a birthday party, and then they think, "Wow, you're playing your voice. I love it." And you can't put a value on that. When you've actually had someone that comes up and says, and they look you in the eye and they felt something, and they go, "I really enjoyed that." That's what drives
Did you
you.
get paid at the expo?
Yes.
Is it a paid job?
Yeah, it was paid.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
By
they
the
paid well.
Australian government.
Australian Pavilion.
Pavilion.
Yeah.
Or paid by the Australian government. Right?
Effectively, yeah. You were subsidised by the government.
What do you think of the expo?
I thought Expo was great.
Yes.
I thought it was remarkable given the challenges it had, given
Exactly. A year
constant.
after.
I think it would have been better had it have been 2020. And I think that it would have been more of an international event had it have been 2020.
And like you said, some countries hadn't opened up yet. It was difficult traveling. People were scared.
So I think it essentially became a great thing for the UAE.
Yes.
I actually think most people didn't realise how good it was. The quality of the
It
restaurants,
was amazing.
the quality of this, the quality of
I
that.
couldn't believe it when I went.
Yeah.
The pavilions were incredible.
What was your favourite?
Saudi Arabia.
Why is that?
The 3D effect that they
Yeah.
had, the virtual reality, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Did you go to the Saudi Arabia?
No, I was
pavilion?
generally there working.
Yeah, it was huge. It
Yeah.
was one of the biggest.
It was one of those, I think, that you'd turn up, and if the queue was too long,
You just
there was a few of them I was like, I'll go see 4 or 5 other ones.
yes, that's true. That's true. No, we got there at a certain time where the queue was after we left. It was amazing.
Yeah.
What's happened to the expo now?
Well,
Area.
I can tell you about the Australian
Please
Pavilion.
do.
I was there for the launch.
Please do.
The Australian Pavilion is going to become part of the University of Wollongong, and it's becoming a data science centre.
That's clever. So they're going to use it.
So it's going to be a great way what a great place to study, but also having students back there that are going to want to eat and that are going to want to socialise. You know, I think they've got a lot of steps in process to
So
reinvigorate the
restaurants are
city.
still open.
That's all closed from when I was there. But when you've got the infrastructure of that great train station and those great green venues, it's got to open up.
So what do you say about the leadership? Why is Dubai making it where everybody else is struggling? Especially you speak to hundreds of people
Yeah.
a year, business owners, entrepreneurs.
I think there's probably a number of reasons for it working. Is that when people come here, they're willing to work to make it. So there's already a certain type of person that's coming here
Grafters.
because they're entrepreneurial, they're workers. So like a lot of countries, they don't have people that are, as we would say in Australia, sponging off the system.
Yes.
You're coming here, you're working. So I think
there is no government handout.
You work, and you've got to follow that. So you've got that as one angle. I think that you've got a government that aren't worried about 4-year election cycles.
Yeah.
They're not worried about, you talk about Australia for 50 years, each government says, we're going to build this huge train network. And they never do. They just make an announcement before an election. So I think you've got governments that aren't worried about the next 4-8 years.
You think of it that way.
Yeah. They're
worried.
Continuous
growth, one vision.
What if this takes 20 years? Let's build it, rather than
trying to impress people. And
yeah, I think there's that. And I think that you've also got the difference of the media. I think that in Australia, what started out as strong media that were able to look at politicians and say, you're spending our taxes. You promised to build this hospital and you didn't. Mm-hmm. Strong media can do that. But then I think sometimes they're looking for headlines and they're looking for negativity.
There is no negativity.
That some people really do like that about the media here.
You run a radio show?
Radio show. Yeah.
You run it. Is that the correct?
Hosted.
You host it. Are you told? Are you given guidelines that you can't say this? Your guest can't say this. Can't say that.
No. Well, we're a privately run radio station.
Yeah, I have
worked
guidelines.
Well, I have worked for government radio, and that's a bit more conservative.
Okay.
Where we're at, we're probably not held to the same degree, but generally the idea is the criticism needs to be constructive. Mm-hmm. You can't just say this is bad,
Yes.
It's very
go with the energy of the land, right?
You can
be optimistic, give ideas.
Optimistic, but you can still be constructive in your criticism. Like, I think this is good, but it could be better if, rather than this is no good.
Yes. So how long have you been working at current station?
Current station's coming up to 2 years.
Amazing.
So I started there producing, writing, really trying to teach a lot of the producers how talk radio, how conversation radio works. And
was this a new station?
This was a brand new station.
Wow. Is this the one with the cricket?
Yes.
Also developed into this station?
Yeah, so they got the rights to the cricket, and then they were like, let's build a station around it. Mm. So
how much does it cost to keep this license every year?
Look, I don't know. It depends. It goes on your emirate and where the licenses are in each emirate. But it,
it's tough, isn't it? Tough running a radio station.
It is tough, but radio doesn't. You don't choose radio. Radio chooses you. Once these like certain industries, they get in your bloods. I love people, and I love getting people on like yourself each day, like you do, and sharing their stories and hearing their stories and learning about and connecting. And I'm now sounding like a dinosaur because I see people coming up that are out of school and are out of uni, and they've got so many skills in technology that I don't have. But I think they maybe are still lacking their connections in a different way.
Emotional intelligence, mileage.
Maybe I'm just getting old.
No, I think COVID made stop people connecting, and Zoom became popular. But I always said, because I know other people were saying humanity's changed. We're not going to shake hands and we're not going to connect. I was saying humanity's dying to get back to connecting because we're tribal.
Yeah,
we do things in groups of people. Moles here have never been busier.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, I think that humans are, let's break bread together. It goes back to 10, 50,000 years that when you have food, you share it at the table.
Yes.
That's
Thinking about breaking bread together, relationship-wise, what's going on? Did I improve?
How long have you got? Oh, look, it's good. I think that. I think that. Going back to always feeling like a bit of an outcast in Australia, going back to those teenage years. I think I enjoyed Dubai because it was one of the few places I was accepted. Because your previous history didn't matter. I wasn't looked upon. I didn't finish high school, or I wasn't in finance or law.
Maybe it was something within you, right? Maybe people didn't think that. Maybe it was something you carried.
Yeah.
And you reflected on.
That could be true. And I think I was a bit of a, for all that toughness, I think I was a bit of a loner I wouldn't say a loner, but I was an independent spirit for a long, just strengthened my resolve.
Because you were in your room alone, you were in your own space, in your own music, whatever. You created a universe in that room.
So I'd go to work and I'd be the life of the workplace and have everyone in stitches and laughing, but then I'd go my own way. And that was my very guarded. And I think the UAE's been the place where, particularly in the last 12 or so months, I've been able to actually make meaningful relationship with people and understand the importance of that and the balance of that in your life. Definitely.
So what's going on? You're avoiding the answer. Yeah. So what's going on? Are you single? Are you?
I have a girlfriend. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where's she from?
She's from here.
Okay.
She's been here about 30 years.
Wow.
So
no, she's not local, is she?
No. Well, no. She's English born.
Okay.
Her dad was an Emirates pilot. Came out in the 80s.
Wow.
She was brought up here. Yeah.
Where did you meet? Because I guess, I remember...
this feels like I'm chatting to my mum. Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, I used to be so envious of DJs in the old days,
right.
80s and 90s. And they used to always bring their, like, box of records.
Records, yeah.
And the girlfriend, there's always, like, a blonde girl sitting on the speaker.
Yeah.
And they used to pull out the records and give it to the DJ. I was like, oh, God, they've always got women around them. DJs.
It's funny. They always used to say to me, oh, Kitch, you play this guitar.
Yeah.
You must know. Because you go to the parties and I'm the soundtrack for my mates to talk to the girls I like. Right? They always say, play the guitar, play more songs. Wingman. So I'm there playing and I'm lost in the music. And next thing you know, oh, shit, there.
I like that. Yeah, missed opportunities. Yeah. I get that.
So it doesn't.
It's a myth.
Didn't always work like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you find time to balance everything, spinning so many plates?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard.
What do you love doing most?
Oh, I generally find what I love doing most is the one that I have the most fear of, because that's the reward.
Which is?
At the end. At the moment, it's music and getting up on stage and singing. That's the one I'm least experienced at. So,
although you've been playing
I've been playing, but I haven't been singing. So for me to get up and sing for an hour and a half or 2 hours, I'm not used to having done that. There's been a singer. So for me, I get a bit, learning how to use your voice again.
Well, I've heard you sing. You're great.
Thank you.
But you don't think you are.
Yeah, I've battled with that, but I've battled with probably underselling myself. But I think I'm learning. That's actually what's driving me.
Yes.
That I can be better. People will go,
People
are going, you were great last night. You sang great. And I was like, no, you know what? In the third song, between the third verse, that chord was wrong. And
nobody knows what you do.
Yeah, but then when I get home from the event, I'm back on the guitar.
Practicing.
Going, no. That when I go to that third verse in the fourth song, that's got to be better. So that then does drive.
People are approaching you to perform at their events all the time, I guess.
Yep, events and hosting, and especially emceeing, and I think that's probably where I'm the most comfortable, is being on stage and being able to bring a room together and have a couple of guests beside me that are nervous, and finding a way to have them feel safe in my company, because they've, if they're a CEO or a corporate, they're worried about every single word that could be recorded or could be wrong. It's being able to keep them warm, a few jokes, subtle comments, and being able to bring in the audience to feel like they're also part of the event as well.
There's always a commercial side of things. And you and I are very similar, again, not from the butcher's side.
Commuting from Sydney to Wollongong?
Yeah, that. Exactly. And we're both self-employed. I have a company, a number of companies, but for a period of time I was self-employed here. And my internal dialogue was that nobody knows me, I'm new, and because of that, I charge very little. And then when I felt more confident, I had more mileage, I had a history of great successes, I started charging more. And I realized the only thing that changed, my life improved when I was charging more. The only thing that changed was my mindset. I could have started where I was 5 years on, but for some reason my dialogue said, nobody knows me, I'm not good enough, I don't have a track record, So now I have people who go and negotiate. I can tell them what to negotiate. I have managers, right? So right now, do you still feel a little bit of awkwardness? Like somebody calls you and says, I want this, and then there's a negotiation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I have a couple of friends in the industry, and that's the biggest challenge.
It is.
And they sell themselves cheap so much, and it hurts me because they're geniuses, they're talents. They're people, when you're on stage, 99% of people are thinking, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
It's their biggest fear.
And it's true in our industry with musicians, with those performers. You do, because you're negotiating for yourself. And I think that
somebody calls for a wedding, hypothetically speaking, and they're spending, they're spending millions on this wedding. And they come and say, I want to pay you peanuts.
You say no. I mean, the wedding. I mean, if it's a wedding, you know that you've got to charge. I think that when it comes down to, if I'm an MC, okay.
They're insulting you. Right?
Yeah.
You walk.
Of course.
Good. Well done.
Of course. But I think that a lot of the time, specifically in Dubai, if you're hosting an event, you do have to be realistic and understand who is the client, what is the venue. You can tell by the size of things with the scale, what is a lot of money for their budget and what is a lot of money for, for this company. Yes. So you do have to have a bit of, okay, well, they're not going to be able to go above this.
You say that was your toughest part?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel it.
And then but then also chasing up the money because
pay up front.
Yeah.
See, I don't chase money. From the beginning, I couldn't afford to give credit because I need to eat. I came here with $700.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, listen, I don't want to spend my time chasing you for money because we have this respect for each other.
Yeah.
So you pay up front and I'll exceed. If you're not happy, I'll give you a full refund. And they all said yes. And today, 14 years later, everybody pays us up front.
I do 50% up front now. I do 50% up front.
100% up front.
Yeah, okay.
100%. They get it. So I just want to focus on delivering.
Yeah.
Finished. I promise you.
It's a great line.
Yeah. Because I don't want to spend time chasing you. I want to have a great relationship in the future.
Yeah.
I say to them, if you want me to increase your price, I have to have 4 more people in my accounts department chasing you for money.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep your prices at a level that you can afford it? It's a great deal. Pay me up front.
Because I have had some relationships that have really been tested because they've asked me to do a second contract. And I'm like, well, you haven't paid me for the first yet.
Yeah. Forget it. Move on.
And then I find out.
They're always going to dangle the carrot, always. And you know what happens if they go somewhere else? They're going to screw one of your competitors' lives. So I'd rather those bad clients go somewhere else, ruin their lives than mine, yes?
It's a good point. Point.
And then when they go, the universe brings you 2 good ones.
It is
negative people block your energy.
You always talk about mindset is everything. Yes. And it is true that, and it takes you a long time to develop that. If someone or something or a company goes out of your life, it does bring you new space for other opportunities and other relationships. Takes you a while to get there.
The thing is, you said just be patient. It'll come. For 3 years, I asked myself the question, how can I have a business when I'm not selling my time? Because you never get rich selling your time. You can make a fortune teaching people to do this because you can have 20 people in a class.
Yeah.
You can have an online course and teach thousands, but you can't play the guitar 50 nights in a row or 50 gigs a night, yes, because you're limited. So for 3 years, I was thinking, I'm going to have another heart attack if I carry on like this. But then I kept asking for 3 years and the answer came. But you got to keep asking.
So what's next for you?
I'm not going to tell you because I'm interviewing you. What's next for you, my friend?
I think I got to go back home, see mum and dad. That's always a great thing to do.
How's their health? How are they doing?
Yeah, I got to see them. They've downsized, sold the family home, so a bit of renovations, and I think they're always just happy. I might try and go to the footy with dad, do all those sort of things.
Is he still active?
Active. He's 81 and he still plays. He's got a metal hip. He still plays tennis every Monday night, and he rings me and he goes, the guys only want to play 1 set and I want to do 3. What's wrong with him? And he's 12 years older than the rest of them.
As well?
No, mum doesn't go as well. Mum spends, my mum's got this way of, talk about people and sales and relationships. If we go shopping with mum.
That's from her dad.
It's from her dad. We go shopping with mum and mum will say, I want to look at this women's clothing shop, and then I'll go off and look at guitars. I come back into the shop and the shopkeeper said, your mum is the most beautiful lady. And she goes, this is Nolene. She's from Hawaii. She's got a kid, and the life story's already out. And then mum does that, and then she gets a discount.
She's lay by.
Yeah, she's getting lay by, exactly, doing all this and this and this. So it's about I go back home and that they've got to find time for me in between all the people that that they meet with. People love them. You make them,
and it's been proven. The more people, the bigger your community connection, the longer you live.
Yeah.
The people are lonely. You and I are finished.
I'm cooked, mate.
That's my sell-by date. So thank you for coming. It means a lot.
You've got things out of me that some of my best friends don't even know. Yeah. So that's a credit to you.
Thank you so much. Because I care. You feel it?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I suffer from sleep apnea, and last night I had a tough night. So I had about 2 hours sleep.
Do you have the mask?
Yes. Well, I don't know what's wrong. They got to improve these machines. I was going to be rude then. So at like 2 a.m, it blowing gale force wind and it splatters water in my face. So 2 o'clock, I'm just throwing it away. But I sleep on my own because my wife can't sleep next to me. So I just sleep without these damn masks because it's really horrible.
Yeah.
And then I had a tough night last night. And the moment you walk in, my energy went up.
Oh, thank you.
I love you in a very masculine way,
right.
Very much. I just connected with you the day we met.
Yeah.
Life goes by and we don't connect enough.
And you said that to me at the time. You said, I feel like we've got a connection. Yeah. And I was like, oh, but you said that to all the hosts. But you said that to all the hosts. But you do. And I think that's...
You're real. That's right. You are real.
Yeah.
There's no walls. There's no ego. We just...
I said to someone at work was talking about money and dreaming of being famous and wealthy. And they said, oh, Kitch, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And I said...
Exactly what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And I said, I think I'd just like to have clean sheets every night. And that'd be about right. And they were like, that's it? And I was like, well...
But a few less worries.
Yeah, a few less worries, and my car might be a bit faster. But there's money doesn't. I mean, money helps if it helps you, but it's not everything.
It's not everything. Money gives you choices. I say money magnifies, right?
And it helps if you're sick. It helps you out if you've got a problem.
Yeah, I like flying first class.
Yes,
I like the holidays and the resorts.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there. I feel not many people when you're old come and say well done to you. So when you have the nice car in the driveway, you're sitting in your on the plane in business or first class, or you're in a nice resort, you think, all this hard work is paying for this. That's where I get fulfillment. That's why I get like a pat on the back. Because the moment you get old, nobody tells you well done. Kind of expected of you to do well.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. But it's also about learning about yourself and acknowledging what are those benchmarks that you like. And some people it's watches, some guys it is cars, some it's holidays.
Now, I'd love to hear from you because you speak to a lot of successful people. It's what other people think of them, right? I have a number of watches, but I just like wearing one.
Yeah. And,
I know this particular watch, it's not cheap, it's not super expensive, but I can jump in the shower in it. It's okay. It gives me I have a very, very, very expensive watch.
Yeah.
It runs fast. Super expensive. And it's black on black.
Yeah.
I can't even tell the date. But everybody comments, right? So I don't wear it.
So you wear that to the awards? Yeah.
Yeah, just when I'm on TV or something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I found one of the things I found harder in the media in Dubai is I'm not. The industry sees me. As an announcer, I'm not as good as this person because this person has 80,000 views on Instagram, even though it's all them in their swimmers at a beach. They're obviously a better radio announcer than I am. And
you feel that, you see it.
You see it in terms of recognition
and
money.
You?
It does a bit because I'm a bit old-fashioned in terms of I think where I need to improve is probably to be less about the substance and a bit more on image and
brand.
Yeah, because I'm so hard in the minutiae of it. Sometimes you've got to step back and sell yourself like that.
The challenge is that you are the product.
Yeah.
You see, and a rejection is you being rejected.
Yeah.
You have to think that detach the product to yourself. Sometimes the product doesn't fit what they're looking for, right? But it's very hard.
Yeah.
Because when I got rejected, I was selling as a consultant. I took it so personally.
Yeah.
I took it so personally. And that's why I can never be a supermodel. Right? Because I get a lot of rejections.
You could be a hand model or a watch model.
I could be. No, that.
It's why a lot of actors date other actors because they both know the pain of constant rejection of a role.
Yes. And people don't realize people like Tom Cruise still audition.
Hmm.
Everyone auditions.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the actor, I think he was in Breaking Bad. He used to say, you've got to read the script and work out a character, and you've got to remember in your head, mentally, your mindset is everything. You didn't get rejected. Your character wasn't right for what they were looking for.
It just didn't fit.
It just didn't fit.
Yes.
Because it can get to you, those reactions. Yeah, and I was a radio announcer trying to get to this job. And my work was just as good. I knew it.
Yes.
But at the time, I didn't understand the importance of relationships. Because in media, they certainly say, it's not your work, it's getting in the building.
And it's egos, a lot of egos. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, egos, image. And you know what? I'm going to blow my own trumpet. Sometimes I was a bit too good.
Mm-hmm.
There's the threat as well.
Yes, I get that.
You can turn up and go, oh, this guy's actually really good.
I don't want them to highlight my inadequacies.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Mainly because I'm a really happy guy. And then most people aren't.
Why are you so relaxed? Where did that come from? You've got great balance.
Very intense.
Yeah.
Money helps.
Yeah.
When you're hungry and the next deal means rent and school fees, you become intense. And when you're hungry, you have urgency. And right now, I'm very clear with my values. So before I do business with anyone, I say, these are my values. Can you stay with these? Yes, let's have that agreement. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And if they don't, like for instance, punctuality is important to me. And if a client is consistently late, no matter how much they pay me, I fire them. Because I told them right at the beginning, punctuality is important. And they don't get it. Some get it, some don't. Some say, you're right. Yes. Forgive me. I'll continue paying you up front and I'll behave myself.
Yeah.
You know, one of the challenges I find out that people think just because the other person has the money, they're in power.
No.
They don't value. It's all about self-worth.
Yeah.
It's all about self-worth. We get paid what we think we're worth.
I'm going to put that on a vision board.
Yeah, we get paid what we think we're worth. And if you look at your listeners, viewers, if you look at your bank statement and it doesn't make you happy, that's how much you think you're worth. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you can change the world around you by changing yourself, by changing your self-worth. So what happened was I realized I was fully booked and I was charging peanuts, like $1,000 a month for my services. I was turning up half a day a week at the clients. And I looked at my clients and I thought, none of them can afford to pay me $2,000. So I fired them all. People thought I was crazy because I had no income.
Yeah.
And then I found clients who pay me $2,000. Now I charge $14,000 for the same work with less energy as I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And people pay if I want to have them. When you become financially successful or
independent,
you don't need it, you look at the world differently. So I'm just relaxed now.
Yeah.
And I advise the young people who work for me and guide them. I'm developing an online interactive training program where I can have a huger reach to the masses so I don't have to travel as much, stand on stage. And because I do care. And, you know, you and I think, going to work together on stage. I do events.
Okay.
And one of the things that hurts me is that majority of people who come to the events never do anything.
But is it because, and I was guilty of this when I went to uni, there was a bit of, I've signed in, I've gone to university, done. I'm in.
Yeah.
Is there a bit of that, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to pay my money, I'm going to do the course, problem solved. And they do the course and they come back and they think it's a quick fix without actually then.
People aren't prepared to make sacrifices, right? And one of the sacrifices you've got to do is discipline. And being disciplined, repetition, habitual things are boring, you see? So I believe people do things for two reasons. One, to gain, to go towards something. And the other one is to avoid something.
Yeah.
Right? So going to the gym gets you the six-pack. But you got to go every single day. And often you go to the gym, you think, it's not as bad as I thought, right? I actually enjoy this. Yeah. But the pain of having to put the popcorn down, turn that Netflix program,
get up early, not go out.
Yes. That pain is far too great than the pleasure you gain. So if everybody understood that, gyms would be fully booked. Gyms make a living out of most people paying every month and not going.
Yeah.
We don't have enough equipment. So most of us are actually motivated by avoiding pain.
But it is...
and gaining pleasure. So, you have a goals, a vision board. It's not enough. You got to think, if I didn't go to the gym, what issues could I have? If I went to the gym, I can have that six-pack. So you got the pull and push.
It's picking your poison, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, it's the pain of getting up at 6 and going, or it's the pain of sitting there all day thinking, I should have gone.
Yes. Yeah. And then we get used to it.
Yeah.
Get used to that feeling. So we've been over an hour, and I loved every second of it.
Thank you.
You interview people all the time. Just can you think of top of your head? You don't have to mention names. You can if you want.
Yeah.
One or two people who really stood out, and the reasons those two people stood out, like the hair stood out in your arms. You thought, this is greatness in front of me.
I think that you need to remember that everyone has a great story. And a mentor of mine in radio told me earlier on, the singers that have had a minor hit are the ones that have the biggest ego. The ones that have just suddenly had a minor song walk into the radio station and are like, no one talked to me, no one looked me in the eye.
You've had them.
Yeah.
You've had
the
them.
real stars will walk in and chat and take a photo with everyone. And that was when, we were on a private villa and we spent an entire afternoon with Robbie Williams, the singer. And he was sick as a dog. Yeah, he had a bad flu, he had a cold, and he walked out in his dressing gown in this, private suite. And he sat down and he only wanted to hear about me. So where did you work in Sydney? What radio station? Oh, were you there when Carl and Jackie O was there? Oh, anyway. Oh, you didn't go to school. My kids are homeschooled. What do you recommend? What? And he was like, he was genuinely interested in me,
yes, rather
than fix me my drink and do all that.
Yeah.
So to have someone like Robbie Williams, that was definitely one of the major ones. And
do you guys connect afterwards? Do you become friends or acquaintances?
No, it was just
at that moment he showed a lot of interest.
Yeah.
But you haven't connected since.
And we had a great chat, and I think I got an Instagram like, and that was sort of it.
Yeah.
And
but at that moment he was present.
At that moment he was so present in. And well, I'll give you three. Second one was the West Indian cricketer. You're probably not a cricket fan, but there was a cricket player.
Oh, I know Viv Richards.
Okay, well, we interviewed
Clive Lloyd.
We had Clive Lloyd. Yeah. So I called the World Cup final.
He must be in his 80s now.
Yeah. And we played the World Cup. I called a World Cup final next to Sir Clive Lloyd, me and him. And what's amazing is that growing up, my dad was selected to play against him. And he had this cricket bat. The match was actually rained out. They didn't even play. But Dad's prize was this cricket bat that had all the signatures of the West Indies. Yes. And I'm sitting here at the game and Australia's in the final. And I'm like, talk about full circle. I'm sitting here next to Clive. But you know what? He was happy to play cricket in the corridor, pose with anyone, anyone's autograph, just happy to chat to anyone about anything. And those two absolute titans of their industry always made time for anyone. And we've had a couple of bad people that have come in. I won't mention them, but they haven't gone anywhere ever since.
Yes, fly by night.
So the way people can come in and really connect, make it work, is a real lesson.
Sometimes it comes too easy, and they don't appreciate it, so they become egotistic.
Yeah,
they just stuck it lucky, and then they think they're amazing. And then the Clive Lloyds and the Robbie Williams, he went through tough times with Take That and had to pick up his career again.
Yeah, he had to go into rehab. And I think there's probably that, if you look at the scale of you're up and then you're down, you realise what you've lost. And then when you're back up again, you appreciate every fan, every ticket, every sale. Yeah, and there's something to that. But, we had a great guest in, Sharon, last week, and she told this story of being pregnant and going into a coma, and then her baby was, she had a stillborn baby, and that had to be taken out to another hospital. And then she woke for a coma to say what had happened. And that's an unbelievable story. So great stories come from anywhere. Then there's your story, and you came in.
People remember stories, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're humans, we're storytellers. And I think that going back into my industry, what I'm enjoying going away from music radio into more a talk conversation is that humans love stories. Storytelling, it goes back thousands of years, whether the stories were written into the rocks, humans relate to stories. They still want storytelling.
I agree. Like when you talk about Disney, people don't give a damn about the logo, all the fun parks.
Yeah.
But they do remember the Disney story. Ford, they remember that he had is that your phone?
No.
He had a factory and a T, the Ford T and stuff like this. How people remember the stories. They don't give a damn about the brand anymore.
Yeah.
It's just it's a sign, it's a badge.
Yeah.
But it's GE, Edison. People remember the stories of these people.
Yeah.
It's never and it's hundreds of years old, 100 years ago.
And they connect. Look, we had the singer Tina Turner died a couple of weeks ago. Could be the biggest female singer in Australia. She was the face of one of our national sports, rugby league.
Right.
Every Friday night, football was Tina Turner. She was in the ads. She was in the ads with all the footballers. People loved her story. What a great story. One of the great singers had to run across the street in the middle of the night to get away from her husband, barefoot, no wallet, begged to get a room. No money, just the name, and worked a backside off.
She lost her children.
Yeah, lost 2 sons.
Yeah, one committed suicide, the other one died. And she had a tough life. She actually said.
Yeah.
And she was sick for a while in Switzerland. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
And people flew from America to visit her, people like Cher and stuff, to show that people still cared for her.
Yeah.
Beautiful lady.
Extraordinary and just inspirational I love those stories. Couldn't get a record contract. You're too old. You can't do this.
And it was a British band, I think Heaven 17 or something, who helped her. I remember she came on a program in the 80s and they were saying, this is Tina Turner. She's been off for a while. And they launched her on that evening. I remember watching. It was like, wow, look at the dance. How sexy is she? The voice was amazing and powerful.
Yeah.
You know what breaks my heart is, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm going to conclude soon. Is that you've been keeping up with this breakfast TV?
Holly and Phil?
Yes.
Yeah, my girlfriend can't shut up about it.
Okay. Tina Turner dies, gets 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yes. And this guy had a relationship with a young man, and for over a week is news. Prince Harry, he doesn't want to have publicity, but he's getting publicity, or he's trying to get publicity everywhere he goes. This really bothers me. I'm thinking, like, are we living small lives here?
No. First rule, and I teach this a lot, Darish. First rule of the media is the media love talking about the media. And there's an agenda to that, because Holly and Phil, whatever their network they're on, the other networks want to bash them.
That's what it is.
So they want it. They want to not,
right, because ITV doesn't go on about it.
No. So all the other networks want to criticize them because they want to look better in the face of advertising dollars.
You're right, because CNN does that towards ABC and so
forth. That's the agenda.
Fox.
Yeah. So Prince Harry at the moment's in court over this phone hacking scandal. Okay. Well, of course, the newspaper and the industry, have got to work together, so that they've got a strong front. And apparently Prince Harry's handled himself in this situation pretty well when it comes down to the phone hacking of when he was in Australia and he'd go to the beach at Noosa and how's everyone here? So that's what you got to remember. The media love, and there's that media cycle of they're the bad person. Oh, but hang on, we need another angle. Okay, well, let's make them out to be the good person and their friends are the bad people and we'll keep it going.
You know what they forget? There's a human behind it all.
Yeah.
Because this Phil guy could kill himself.
Yeah.
Right? The whole world's turned against him. And
he hasn't done anything illegal.
Exactly.
He hasn't done anything wrong.
It was a male-to-male relationship, right? Isn't that kind of female to male going on in most businesses? And
well, there was the age thing and the age they met. But look, I've been in the legal
age, 20.
I've been in the media a long time. Yes. You can, if you take some time out, you let it cool off. Or Lazarus Rising, there are always stories of people that have come back. So it's just, you just got to cool. But also you remember that when he does make the comeback, people are going to want to tune in to see it. So if he's mentally right, because clearly he's struggling at the moment, if he got the right people around him and the right projects and there's enough time, you can find your way back.
It's sad because he didn't do anything illegal. He was wrong. We didn't do anything.
But I mean, the way the media, without going into the media, business ecosystem, it's hard because you've got advertisers, and then advertisers are worried about what other people are commenting on and the image, and
because everybody else lives perfect lives, don't they?
Look, there was a TV presenter that lost his job in Australia because he was having an affair with a co-host, and it was on the paper. And the CEO was asked the same questions you were saying, and the CEO said, "I don't care what's going on. I just don't want to read about it in the paper." So he had, as the head of the company, it was like, I don't care what they're doing, but as soon as it's in the paper, it's going to affect advertising in our bottom line. So that's why those presenters get paid a lot of money, because everything they do, mowing the lawn, they're scrutinized.
Yes, I guess they chose that.
Yeah.
And they have to see what comes with it.
Yeah. So that's just, there's always that agenda with the media.
Yeah, nice angle.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been good fun.
Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, I salute you, and see you next time.